Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for yet another conversation with. Today, we are joined by MOOYAH Franchisor and Franchisee, and very excited to get into our conversation. For those of you who have been watching at home, a few things to note. One, make sure you join our private Facebook group. It's specifically built for the franchise community. There are great discussions happening on there, as well as advice when someone needs some help. The community has taken a life of its own. So if you go on Facebook and just search for Franchise Mastermind, you'll find our group. Just request to join and you can. Secondly, we've been having some really active discussions in the comment section of the live streams. So if you are watching on your live stream, we can take your questions and have our panel address them on here. Last thing I want to note is one of the offline discussions that have been happening has been, what does it look like when the world opens back up? And I'll say the indicators from a business standpoint that Charles and I have been talking a lot about is antibody tests. When are those going to be available so that we can understand what is your bill of health? And then secondly, obviously the cure that could take still significant time. So we're tracking indicators, both decreases in counts. We've seen some positive news over the last few days, so that we can start thinking about when do we start positioning to start telling the story of here's how we're going to get back to business. Here's how we get back to level. Here's how we get to growth. So continue to watch as we explore those conversations. Enough of that. Tony and Patrick, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Tony, I want to start with you. Just generally speaking, what's going on in your life, your business, franchising? How are you feeling about things? How are you remaining keeping a mindset of optimism during a time like this?
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having us on. We appreciate the time very much. But for us in terms of the business, obviously, when you go from a business that is doing extremely well and growing sequentially month over month and quarter over quarter, and then you pull the rug out, it obviously becomes a real challenge. But from an operational perspective and from a morale perspective, we feel like we're in a very good spot as an organization. We're certainly feeling the declines that a lot of folks are feeling at this point, but we had worked really hard to solidify our delivery operations through the course of 2019 and got that done in 2019. And so with that, as well as the ability of our franchise owners to pivot on a dime and go to that off-premise model, we feel like the business is not great. There are huge declines, but we're stable. And we feel like, at least in terms of recent trends, we feel like we're kind of at the bottom at this point, and we feel like that we're stabilizing. And I think now, as I met with our team this morning, now it's the time is a time for us to grow. So we feel like there is some momentum coming.
Appreciate that. And Patrick, same question to you. Just generally speaking, how are things holding up on your end?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the last 3 weeks have turned a normally difficult job of being a franchise owner and made it even more difficult in terms of navigating the change in business, all of the opportunities available from the government to help out from a business standpoint, and just really not knowing what the next week is going to look like from week to week. We've managed to keep all our units open, which is the number one objective that I had coming into this, both in terms of keeping my employees working, but also in terms of continuing to serve the communities that we're in. We happen to have 4 MOOYAH locations, 2 in Connecticut. One is an urban location, the other right on the campus of UConn. So you can imagine how business has declined there just in the last 3 weeks. And then 2 locations in Massachusetts, again, both suburban locations. So we've been seeing a span of decline anywhere from 60% at the UConn location down into the mid to high 40s at the other location. So really, it's been being able to have my team focus in on what's critically important, which is making people that are buying our product feel good about the product that they're buying, and continue to do so, as well as I've been spending my time at my home office really diving in to the PPP, to the EIDL, working with the brand in terms of all the programs and support that they have. And I'm convinced that we're going to come out of this, as Tony said, if it's possible to come out of this better, we will come out as better, stronger brand and a better, stronger operation as a result.
Tony, you'd mentioned about momentum coming out on the other end of this. And what I find fascinating, before we started with this video, you had an opportunity to speak with Patrick, and he said something that I thought was pretty profound, and I think probably has its DNA in the leadership at the franchisor level and Patrick's, which is that, and I'm paraphrasing, Patrick said, you know what, right now we're focused on making people feel good, and we're focused on the comfort that our servers provide, our delivery provides, our product provides. And I think that's a massive trend. And I think smart brands are going to recognize this. And it's great that that's front and center for Patrick. I'm curious, Tony, because I think it reflects on your organization. How do you take that, bottle it, and how does that become part of your momentum to grow as you guys come out of this?
Sure. Well, I think ultimately where this starts is once we realized and we all understood what was happening, because it came on rather quickly, but once we understood and what was going on, it really was about aligning on a mission and a mission of us as an organization to get all of our restaurants to the other side of this and get them all to the other side of this in a position where they could take advantage of what we believe is going to be a pretty strong uptick in business. And so that's where we're coming from. And we meet every morning as a team. We meet every morning as a team. And then I meet every evening with our leadership team. And everything is about coming at this from a point of contribution. And so as a franchisor, we come at this as a point of contribution with our franchisees and how we best can support them, how we best can achieve our mission of getting everybody to the other side of that. And so, I mean, that manifests itself in a number of ways. And really for us, it was four things that we felt were very important. One, we needed to be in a place where we offered some financial support. And we did that through paying for delivery immediately, right? Immediately started paying the delivery fees that our franchise owners had to pay. And so we took that off their plate. And at the same point, once we got a little deeper into this, we needed to deepen that relationship with our owners and offered some a royalty deferment plan. So I think trying to do our best from that perspective allows the owners and allows our team members to really focus on the business at hand, which is to give a great guest experience. And whether that's off-premise delivery or when people can come back into our dining rooms, it's delivering a great guest experience in all of those channels.
Patrick, we've talked with various franchisors and franchisees about just building the time capsule of support, that now is the time where you look to your franchisor to step up and guide you. And there's a consistency on franchise owners saying, this is exactly why I bought into this, and this is why business. Hearing obviously what you said, how something like that.
You were coming in and out of the question. I think you were asking how has MOOYAH been supporting us? Is that the crux of the question?
Yeah. How do you feel about the scaffolding that ends up around you? Does this create that full validation that this was the right decision?
Sure. Yeah. And I think everybody watching this broadcast is watching because they're either a franchisee or they're thinking of being a franchisee. And this is why you go with a franchise as opposed to doing it on your own. I think we were less than, I remember it was the Monday of the very first week, the 16th of March, when we were on calls with MOOYAH's operations team talking about, the potential impact that this would have on our business, but also, what to do next, what to focus in on, exactly what the change to our cleaning procedures would look like, what the new products that we would have to order in order to combat this would be. And the fact of the matter is, I don't think any brand walked into this situation with a pandemic plan that they pulled off the shelf and they started reading through. So I think in general, I think it's kudos to having made the decision to get a franchise as opposed to trying to doing it on your own, to have that support there. I think MOOYAH as a brand has lived up to a lot of the characteristics that that made it interesting for my team to move with them. And then lastly, I think we've been able now to build a plan in effect that if this type of thing were to happen again in the future, they're taking feedback from the franchisees, what works, what doesn't work, what works better than other things. And we're going to build this, and as you said, a time capsule. So we're building this plan to say, if this type of thing happens again down the road, we're going to be responding to it better, faster than even we did this time.
Hey, Patrick, just drawing on that a little, and this question matters a lot to me because I feel like you very rarely get the chance to have this introspection, and consistent with the theme of the time capsule, right? As you sit here today, I think you have 4 MOOYAH locations. Let's go back to before you signed that first franchise agreement. What was the intangible that you felt that you now feel was validated through your experiences as really that reason why you signed on with MOOYAH?
Great question. I think if you look at the brand, and those of you out there who are unfamiliar with the brand, based in Texas, we've tried to take that notion of a very family and community oriented burger, fry, and shake place, better burger and fry and shake place, out of that environment, and we brought it into New England. And I think the thing that made us go with MOOYAH, there were a couple of things. One is obviously we love the food, we love the menu, we love the environment and the atmosphere. But frankly, it was also that the brand hadn't already achieved the size where they felt that they had all the answers. And they were very, very willing to have people that come to the table with different experiences and offer up potential ideas and potential solutions to problems as the brand grew. And I think going through this whole process with Tony and with his leadership team, literally talking to at least one of them on a daily basis, I don't know that we would have had that same access to the leadership team if we had gone with a really huge national brand. And I also think the brand has lived up to the fact that yes, we're focused on the community, we're focused on building a business based on exceptional customer interaction, and in this case the brand's customer is us, the franchisees, and they're living up to the relationship with us the same way that we live up to the relationship with our customers, which is obviously what you want to see.
Tony, yesterday we had a conversation with Walter Bond, who's a motivational speaker, and he was giving us an example of 2 franchisors, and I'm going to paraphrase this, but the franchisor 1 is doom and gloom. This is going to be really tough, and then franchisor 2 is like, yes, we figure out a way to only be down 18%. And you think about the mindset that shifts there to say, we're only down 18%. This is great. Is there a mindset shift that has to happen during this time that is not necessarily about profitability, because you said the mission is to get to the other side? So changing the mindset, re-engineering the P&L to support the costs that could go against what that means to be 18% down. Did the whole story just kind of shift there?
It absolutely did. And like I said, and Patrick alluded to it, but we at the very, very height of this, at the onset of this pandemic and this crisis, we made a decision to communicate, to over communicate with our franchise owners, and that could be 1 to 2 times a day, and so everything shifts to your point at that point, and it becomes about let's look very short term at this and understand how we get these restaurants to the other side of this. So whether that be financial support, delivery fees, whether that be guiding folks through the PPP or the EIDL portal and how to qualify or how to apply for the stimulus, how do we make the environment safe, and then ultimately once you've kind of stabilized the core, right, and you've found yourself a baseline, and then it becomes how do you market the business, And how do you market the business like next week? We've had this conversation. We had an FAC meeting. We had our regular cadence of FAC meetings and town halls with our entire system. And normally, in those types of conversations, Patrick is on the FAC. We're talking about initiatives that are 12 and 18 months out, and talking about how we test. And so it did pivot, and that meeting and those meetings became about, hey, here's where we're at. Where did we miss, and what are we not talking about as a system right now? And then what can we do next week to help drive your sales forward, or in terms of regionally and by restaurant specific. So it absolutely changed. You go from, we were very proud of the fact that we had a solid marketing calendar for 2020 and for 2021, but that goes on hold when you come into a situation like this. And now it becomes about a day by day. How are we supporting our owners? What can we do differently in these times to try to drive as much revenue in our restaurants? And at the same point, how do we, like Patrick said earlier, how do we continue to serve our communities, and how do we stay open and keep our restaurants available to serve our communities in times like this? So.
Yeah, it's for everyone generally. I don't even know if this is a question, but just an observation, right? Because during these conversations, what I find fascinating is connecting the dots from leading brands, right? And then, Tony, what I love is you started off, well, first, Patrick, before the call, started off with the contribution to the community. And then you started this off, like, I think from a foundational element of, hey, we're coming at this from the point of contribution. I think once you set up that funnel and that prism or mindset, I think everything flows. What I find interesting too is when you use those words about contribution, especially for emerging brands. First, I think what Patrick said about why he went with the brand, and if anyone's listening, to me, it was in addition to the brand, it had to do with the leadership team, which is, right, something we're hearing often, it says a lot. But then, Tony, your point about coming at it from a point of contribution, and then connecting that with Patrick's statement, which is, hey, we're focused on brand, community, leadership, customers. But then I think Patrick said something like, and we're also the customers as franchisees, which really gets to the paradigm shift of, on the other side of this, emerging or large, taking Tony's viewpoint of coming at this from a point of contribution, and also that franchisees are a stakeholder in a different way than they may have been understood before this. Just throwing that out there generally, what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I think, as I said, you're spot on. One of the reasons, as I said, that we enjoy working with the MOOYAH team is because they do treat us like true stakeholders. And we know that we send our royalty checks in and contribute to the marketing fund and all of that good stuff. But, everybody is interested in us being successful at the end of the day. And it starts with top line revenue growth. Now, everything that's gone on here is changed that model a little bit to be focused very much on cash and cash flow, and how long can we sustain all of this? Because the other thing that goes with serving the community is the franchise owners aren't making a whole lot of money right now, and in some cases it might even be less expensive for us to actually close some of these locations. But I think that the idea is, we don't want to do that. We want to be able to hang out as long as we can, be the last man standing, be there for the community when we come out of this. And as Tony said, come out of this a lot stronger. And it's not only us, by the way, it's our teams as well. So the GMs that I have in the restaurants, the area manager that I have running all of our operations, the people that are shaking fries and flipping burgers and making shakes every day, they're all just as committed to this as I am. They can go home if they want. They can, if they don't feel comfortable working, they can go home. And by the way, if they all go home, I don't have a business to run because I can't do it. So everybody's in the same boat of wanting to see this thing through and wanting to get to the other side and understanding that we will get there.
Yeah, and I would just add on to that too, in terms of key stakeholders, we're a 99% franchised organization. So the lifeblood of our organization are our franchise owners, and we don't win as an organization if they are not successful. And I can assure you, everything that I look at, everything that the leadership team looks at, we look through it through that lens. Is this going to make our franchise owners successful? And we're very planful and very thoughtful about the things that we do or initiatives that we employ across the organization, because again, we are a network of small businesses at MOOYAH, right? And so any amount of money or any investment, or whether that be time or money or capital or facilities, any investment like that is meaningful to all of our owners. And so we're very thoughtful about that, and do look at that as these owners are the lifeblood of MOOYAH.
As you guys continue to navigate your businesses, obviously Tony is the franchisor trying to create the mission to get to the other side on behalf of all the franchisees. And Patrick, you on a local level saying, how do I maximize our business to be successful enough to get to this other side? How do you guys balance opportunity? I mean, the reality is the customers are going to be there on the other side. People are going to want to eat a great tasting product. You guys fill that need. And the other reality is there's going to be a percentage of restaurant brands that don't make it to the other side. Therefore, those customers may have the ability to increase their occasions with you because some of their other favorite places are no longer in operation. So knowing that you're battling real-time battle right now, how much brain power can you put towards opportunity while battling so heavily and hard and exhaustive on the front lines right now? That's to either of you.
I'll start. I mean, with that, I can tell you that, like I mentioned earlier, once we felt that at least we had some stability with what we were dealing with today, and stability in revenue, stability in initiatives, stability in people, our eye immediately, and we've met starting last week, our eye immediately went on, what does this look like? And what does the new normal look like on the other side of this pandemic? I think that as an organization, we're already looking at new designs and new marketing initiatives that really play to what's going on right now. Because I think that the way that we're being used as by our consumer through the app, through delivery, through curbside, I don't believe that is going to completely go away. I believe that the convenience that people are experiencing right now with those channels are going to continue. And as a brand, and Patrick and I have talked about this one-on-one, as a brand, we have to be prepared to execute that. And so we're working through new prototypes right now. And as I mentioned, new marketing initiatives, new items, new training, and new equipment and operations activities that are gonna have us ready for that. And because you're right, there are going to be some restaurants, and you never have any. You're never happy to hear about a restaurant that doesn't make it. That's certainly just not great to hear about. But I think the reality of it is there are going to be some that don't make it, and that's why there's such a push to get all of our restaurants to the other side, because there is going to be an uptick, and there is going to be consumer need to get out and get into restaurants and experience it from that regard. So we are absolutely now shifting to what does this look like on the other side, and how to in each bucket of our business, how are we going to be prepared and at the front end of this and not be reactive.
Yeah, no, I'd completely agree with that, and I think like with any major change that occurs in a market, and those of us over 50 have seen a few of them. You come out with the winners and the non-winners, and the winners tend to be the people that can innovate the fastest. So I have no doubt that people will continue to demand our product out there, but as Tony said, the way they consume it, I think, is going to be very different. And the percentages of in-room dining versus takeout versus delivery are going to change dramatically. And so, we've all sort of been staring at the millennial effect for the last year and a half, trying to figure out the buying behaviors of millennials, and we've got to put kiosks in, and we've got to do all this stuff because they don't want to talk to humans and all this kind of notion. Well, this is a slap in the face saying we got to do this now, because now it's a public safety issue. But even when the public safety issue has gone away, people are going to enjoy interacting with you through an app and have that product delivered, or come to pick it up and have it run out to your car. So as a franchisee, I'm pressuring Tony and his team and participating in how do we get this brand to be a leader in the takeout experience, and make sure that when we do come out the other end, that we're there. By the way, it doesn't only change on the sales side and the revenue side, it changes on the expense side too, right? Are we going to want to have a 3,200 square foot store with a 2,000 square foot dining room at the end of this? Probably not. And so how we negotiate with our landlords, how we pay, and how our rents are structured, and how our other major expenditures get structured also change as a result of what we're going through right now. And just getting back to the other question about sort of getting and being able to start thinking about this is one of the reasons why getting the PPP and the EIDL stuff in the rear window is so important. Because once that money is in the bank, then the waking up at 2:00 in the morning, worrying about payroll and cash flow sort of goes away. And you can start thinking and putting yourself looking in the forward direction. And that's what we want to be doing right now.
So Patrick, I'm not the only one who's been up like all night last night. It's crazy. If I get up one more time,
you can call me. You feel free to call me next time if you want.
Yeah, no, Patrick, be careful with that, because you may get, because again, Walter Bond had mentioned this is off season and prep, right? And to make ourselves better. And part of that too is, in my mind, reverse engineering like a great franchisor-franchisee relationship. I got to tell you, Patrick, as you're speaking, I'm blown away from an operational element. And if this is too personal, please. But what did you do before you became a MOOYAH franchisee?
I've been working with high technology, sales and marketing, really startup companies. So very much along the same type of work. I was never into restaurants before 2016, but people say going to a restaurant is crazy, but it's the same as running a business, running a high-tech business.
That, it's pretty interesting, right? So you weren't in the restaurant industry, and yet you were speaking. I'm like, this guy knows the restaurant industry, which testament to both of you. Tony, I don't know if there's a question to this. This may be the most oversimplistic question on the planet, or nonsense, because I know success is everything. It's not one thing, right? With that preface, what's the one thing you're glad you did, whether it's operationally with your team, core values, technology, that you're really leaning on in this crisis, that you're thinking, I'm glad we did this and we didn't expect this to happen?
Well, I've been at the brand for a year now, and when I arrived at the brand, back in April of 2019, we had not fully integrated delivery. We had not had that rolled out across the system, and so and we got that across the finish line, and through our dispatch technology, where you can order and pay and order delivery from the app, we got that across the finish line in quarter 4. So again, not knowing that this was going to happen, this was going to be there, we knew that our plan to win that we had as an organization was to really lean in on digital, lean in on delivery, and lean in on the entire e-commerce segment. And so I'm glad we laid that out. I'm glad we had that as an initiative, first and foremost, because we would not have been as set up to execute through this time period had we not completed that in 2019. The other thing too, and I will tell you, and like I mentioned earlier, when you get in a crisis like this, you got to communicate. Transparent communication, and even in a lot of cases, over communication. So we had established a cadence of communication across our system, whether that be through one-on-ones, through video calls with our franchise ops managers and our franchisees, town halls, FAC meeting. So we had established a cadence throughout the entire year, throughout 2020, and we had very specific and planful communications with our teams. And so I'm thankful that we had that, because it wasn't about creating that or creating a delivery initiative. Those were in place. And so I think those two things helped us out the most coming into this.
For any of you watching at home, if you want to gain more information on MOOYAH, go to MOOYAH.com. You can see some of the initiatives that they have running right now, or you can also go to their 1851 page at 1851franchise.com/MOOYAH. Gentlemen, as we make this final turn, would love your final thoughts. Tony, let's start with you.
Again, obviously, our number one thought is that everybody stays safe and well, not only for our team members, but their friends and family and all of our consumers and everybody within that's dealing with this COVID-19 crisis. But, I would just leave you with the fact that, we are thankful to be in this industry. We are thankful to be in the spot that we're in, and we're going to continue to support our owners and support our teams as best we can to get through this. So I appreciate being on very much. Thanks for having me.
Patrick, final thoughts?
Yeah, from my standpoint, I echo what Tony said about being safe, and for me, that's about my employees and making sure they stay healthy and their families stay healthy. I do think we're going to come out of this and with a set of operational principles that are going to be very, very different. One of the biggest ones that I learned was the importance of the relationship with your banker. But there's more than that in terms of the relationships with your vendors and everything else that you might not have paid attention to before. And my advice would be, pay attention to those relationships, build them so that when issues do come up, you can pick up the phone and talk to a human being, and hopefully they're there to help you out. And thanks as well for the opportunity to talk. It was a lot of fun.
Carlos, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much here. If there's ever a franchise university and they want to give an example of how, the relationship would work and when it becomes a win-win, I think Tony and Patrick are a great example of that. I'm going to just leave off with 2 points, one by Tony, one by Patrick, which is I think the winning formula after this is maintaining that focus on making people feel good, which really gets to the heart of what we're doing and why, beyond serving burgers or whatever we do, although I do want a burger. And then, Tony's point really stuck with me, which is, I think once you're aligned the right way, things like having a philosophy of coming at this from a point of contribution, I think that's a mindset that takes care of so many other things. So I appreciate it, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, my final thought is there's tremendous opportunity on the other side of this. We heard a little bit of today. Real estate could adjust. People are falling in love with their homes or falling out of love with their homes right now. So part of that is the meals and the family gatherings. We've heard about people having more dinners with their families than they've ever had before. So things that we may have taken for granted in the past, we're starting to appreciate. That's where a brand like this starts fitting in perfectly. Some of the decisions that they made as a brand in 2019 actually prepare them for what happens now to at least navigate this crazy choppy water. I feel like the labor market's going to look very interesting on the other side of it. It's been super tight. It's been hard to get really good talent. I think there's going to be a great opportunity for brands that have clearly come out of here with mission, vision, and purpose. That's going to be something that resonates with an audience of labor that really wants to go find companies that they can feel passionate about. You can hear that here with Patrick and Tony, the way that they're talking. This makes this a brand that you're going to want to be a part of. And another neat thing is just Patrick's story that, he didn't come from the restaurant business, but because of the scaffolding and structure that exists within the organization, he's become an expert in the industry in just a few short years, as well as a scaling multi-unit operator, things that will probably be defined in the future as necessary to find success in the restaurant business. So I'm grateful for this conversation. It motivates me. It should motivate everybody that's been watching. Thank you all for joining us on another conversation with us. Appreciate it.
Take care, everyone.
Bye now.